Tourmaline is a system we've developed here at Carnegie Mellon University, which makes certain kinds of difficult text formatting tasks easier for the end user. You're probably familiar with WYSIWYG word processors. In many commercial WYSIWYG systems, you can format text by defining things called styles. A style usually describes how a single piece of text should be formatted. For instance, if I want to have all the section titles in my document appear in a bold-faced 10-point Arial font, I can define a style to do that for me. This makes it very easy for me to change the look of all the section headings in my document. If I later want to make them all italicized, for example, I merely make the change to one of the headings and redefine the style. Although this type of style system is very useful, it still has some serious limitations. For instance, in the system you see here, running on a popular commercial word processor, styles can only be applied to entire paragraphs. If I try to make one word in this paragraph look like the section heading, the whole paragraph changes, and that's not what I wanted. Tourmaline extends the style system of a WYSIWYG word processor with a new kind of abstraction that we call a macrostyle. Macrostyles are like styles, except that macrostyles can format text objects composed of many logical parts. In this example, each part of the heading is formatted differently. Most word processors won't allow you to format this heading with a single style. Instead, you'd have to define and manipulate at least 6 different styles. Some batch-oriented text formatting systems do allow users to define macros that can work somewhat like macrostyles. For example, say you wanted to generate this heading. In the LaTeX formatter, you would enter this instruction. That's not too bad, right? Wrong, because you also need to be able to program the macro to define the heading, and that can be extremely difficult to do correctly, even for someone who's an expert with the system. Tourmaline combines the ease of use of WYSIWYG with the power of batch formatting by using demonstrational techniques. The best way to understand our system is to see an example of Tourmaline in action. Tourmaline runs on an IBM PC-compatible system and is built on top of the commercial word processor Microsoft Word for Windows, using its built-in programming language WordBasic. In this example, I'm compiling a bunch of papers for a book and want to make sure that each chapter heading is formatted consistently. First, I format one of the headings to look exactly the way I want. Then, I select the heading and tell Tourmaline to go to work by clicking on the Define Macrostyle button. The system asks me to name the macrostyle. I'll call this one Chapter Heading. Tourmaline then parses the text looking for distinct text objects. Objects are delimited by tabs, carriage returns, changes in formatting attributes, or special characters such as semicolons. Tourmaline uses a number of heuristics to try to classify each text object in the heading. Usually, Tourmaline is able to infer an object's class without any user intervention. However, sometimes the system requires some help from the user. In this example, for instance, the system isn't sure about the class of the text Information Networking Institute, but it did have enough clues to guess that the text represents a group, such as a division or department of an organization. If the system had been incorrect, I would select the correct class from the built-in list or type in a new class name. Tourmaline's heuristics were able to correctly classify all the other text objects in this heading. The heuristics rely on keywords, like the word university, usually signifying an organization, positional relationships, such as an author name usually comes before an organization, and typographic information, such as the title is usually the biggest text in a heading. Once Tourmaline is done, it pops up a dialog box with all of the inferences it has made and allows you to fix any incorrect classifications. In this case, all of the objects are correctly classified, so I clicked on Everything's OK. Once you accept the macrostyle definition, Tourmaline encodes the macrostyle and stores it in a hidden text region at the end of the document. Now suppose that I want to format the next chapter heading so that it looks just like the first one. I type in the text for the new heading but leave it completely unformatted. I then select the text and click on the Apply Macrostyle button. Tourmaline asks me to select which macrostyle to apply. I'll choose the one I just defined, Chapter Heading. Tourmaline then reads in the macrostyle definition from the hidden text region. Next, it parses the user's unformatted heading text and uses pretty much the same procedure it did earlier to classify the text objects. By comparing the new heading with the macrostyle definition, the system then formats the new heading appropriately. Notice that the text Chapter 2 was automatically inserted into the document. Also notice that this heading had 2 author names instead of 1. Since the prototype heading had a single author name running down the left column, Tourmaline decided that in this case both author names should be left aligned. I would format any other chapter headings in the document just like I did this one. Now let's say that for some reason I want to change the way that all of the chapter headings are formatted. In a conventional word processor, the user would have to manually fix up all the headings in a paper. In Tourmaline, it's much easier. First, I go to any one of the macro-styled headings and make the desired changes. In this example, I am centering the heading and changing the presentation of the title, author name, and author affiliation. Then I tell Tourmaline to redefine the macro style. Once again, the system parses and analyzes the heading. It goes through the same inferencing process it did when the macro style was originally defined. The system needs to completely reanalyze the heading because the user may have made arbitrary editing changes that would invalidate any knowledge the system has about its structure. When Tourmaline has finished its analysis, it asks the user if other headings with the same macro style should be updated. If you click Yes, the system will search through the document for other headings that need to be reformatted. Each time it finds one, it calls the Apply Macro Style function to apply the new definition of the macro style. In this stage, Tourmaline needs to be careful about noticing system-generated text. For this example, the system needs to notice that the words chapter and to are already in the heading so that it doesn't insert them again. In these modified headings, notice how the system has changed its placement of the author names. Since the prototype heading now has the author centered, Tourmaline chooses to lay out multiple author names horizontally rather than vertically. You've just seen an example of how easy it is to format paper headings with Tourmaline. Tourmaline handles many different types of headings. Paper headings with all different kinds of orientations and formatting, chapter headings, section headings, figure and table captions, and itemized lists. You've seen from this brief glimpse of Tourmaline how easy it is to format headings by example. We will continue to explore the use of the demonstrational paradigm in other areas of text formatting as well.